This is Gregaro McCool coming to you from the County Fence Biannual Skunk Works deep in the wilderness of eastern Ontario. Today I'm reading travel editor Rachael Boardman's piece on Burlington, Vermont. Please note that this article was originally published in print during the Biden administration. Since then, things have changed. Last week, I began to feel it. The urge to step out into the street and knock people's hats off. It may not be my cue to go see the watery part of the world. I don't know much about that. But it is my cue to explore a little. I had 3 goals. No more than 6 hours of driving, no big, expensive cities, and something different than my current context. Burlington, Vermont checked nearly each of those boxes. The box it didn't quite check was being different from Brownlow. These cities are like twin brothers who went in entirely different directions in life. Rather than taking some time away, I feel like I went on a fling with my boyfriend's brother. And I'm not sure I'm sorry. I've seen how it could have been, and I want it. The nearest major city to Burlington is Montreal, and it shows. The twins may have a lumberjack for a father, but their mother is a French-Canadian artist. The name Vermont itself comes from the French, Vermont, or Green Mountains, hence the Green Mountain State. And while it gets things done in a very American way, local, individual, rural, it thinks like a Canadian. Bernie Sanders isn't a radical. Vermont's just in the wrong country. Maybe. I have a thing for American college towns. Canada can't seem to get them right. Sure, we have some good ones, but where's our Burlington? Am I just comparing our college towns to the best, or do we simply like our students quiet and centrally located? Even our best college towns are lacking that self-assured eccentricity that comes from intelligent people gathering in places where there's enough enchanting space for everyone. For example, my favorite coffee shop of all time is Cafe Mocha in Arcata, California, home to a University of California campus. It's the sort of organic building you only get when hippies lovingly build it themselves in regions with lax building codes. Inside, it sells artisanal coffee and baked goods while model trains chug around the ceiling in a dignified and self-assured kind of way. Out back, there's a yard with wood-fired hot tubs and Finnish saunas, and cafe tables arranged around a central pond. The best thing is that it's not expensive. If I were a student in Arcata, I'd be there weekly. Perhaps it's not everyone's cup of tea, but this is where it found enough of an audience to be its best self. Where could a place like that exist in Canada? Burlington's foundation is very similar to Brownlow, both British colonial towns on similar waterfronts chosen for their proximity to standing timber. Both grew to about the same population. Burlington has the distinct advantage of being the state capital and home to University of Vermont, a so-called public ivy, which seems appropriate. Both cities wear flannel shirts to dinner and like their outdoor activities, but in Burlington it's simply because they like it, rather than some esoteric nod to tradition and frugality, masking generational trauma. Here in Brownlow, we can't have the neighbors thinking we think we're better than they are, after all. The most compelling thing about Burlington is that the events page in the local alternative paper bursts at the seams. Even in the middle of a rainy week after exams, yet before the leaves had sprouted, I was spoilt for choice. There were at least 20 musical acts playing that night, weekly local bands, sure, but in Burlington, that's saying something. In addition to the music, local art was exhibited everywhere, and there were more than a few open mic, comedy, or other creative performing arts events. None of it was particularly expensive, and the place was full of small, relatively affordable venues, apparently making ends meet. The business people of Burlington certainly aren't afraid to ask for what they're worth, but there's always a way those more financially challenged can take part in the same fun. Shared artist spaces, markets, and startup incubators make me surprisingly happy. I first experienced the concept over a decade ago at Tamarack Marketplace in West Virginia. This was a public project run by the West Virginian Parkways Economic Development and Tourism Authority to build a cottage industry in a state ravaged by the environmental and social impact of coal mining. Rather than hunting down individual artisans likely located at the end of some labyrinthine system of back roads, the state government created a one-stop shop. Imagine an en route turned shopping mall that sells only products made within the state, with 8 studios for artisans and residents. In 2008, Tamarack contributed $18.6 million to the state's economy, supported 236 full-time equivalent jobs, and generated $750,000 in state and local taxes. The Transit Authority puts more money in than they get out, but very few seem to mind the investment as it returns dividends elsewhere. It's an idea I can get behind and an environment I'd love to be part of. Naturally, I've wondered what impact such a project might have in my hometown of Brownlow, a community so often hurt by the fickle needs of businesses too big to care about it. Like West Virginia, the GBA or Greater Brownlow area could use a healthy cottage industry to balance out the ebbs and flows that come with a manufacturing-based economy. It should be a place of innovation and creativity, but it seems stuck on the way things have always been, a way that may have never worked out, but certainly doesn't these days. Jules tells me that this is all Brownlow knows, since it was built using Scots-Irish economic refugees, an unpopular group at the time, to occupy land that Americans or indigenous people might otherwise occupy, and strip it of its natural resources. Yet I fear we love what we know too much to support something like this. Burlington is the kind of city that pedestrianized its main streets so long ago that it needs to be redone. Yet the feeling of a well-worn and well-loved kooky idea just adds to the authenticity. Burlington isn't trying to be cool, they are cool. Even if they had to fake it till they make it initially, that's now 50 years ago, and they have made it. Perhaps the difference is the university or being the state capital, and they certainly are major differences. Yet it seems more vibrant than even larger cities north of the border. So perhaps it's American individuality and entrepreneurial spirit combined with the isolation from the rest of the Union. Whatever the reason, it's the kind of city that almost immediately gives off the vibe of self-assured interest in whatever weird project you have going on that comes from everyone else having their own to get lost in. It's the feeling of creative synergy versus insecure competition. This article has gotten rather theoretical for a travel piece, and so let me tell you about a few of my other favorite attractions. Dobra Tea Room is a wonderfully eccentric Eastern-style hippie tea room that somehow pulls it off. You can enjoy an expansive and exotic tea menu from either the comfortable bohemian cafe tables by big sunny windows or on meditation cushions and reed mats in the back, while New Age music permeates the space. The Leahy Center for Lake Champlain was chaotic and geared for children, but Burlington is rightly proud of it. An aquarium for creatures native to the Champlain Basin, closely related to our Great Lakes region, was a rare treat when so many similar attractions are dedicated to the exotic. And of course, the waterfront was delightful. It's easy to forget that we have a mountain ranges in the east, and Lake Champlain is a sizable lake full of eclectic islands connected to the Hudson River and St. Lawrence, nestled between the peaks, a few of which were still snow-capped in late April. In addition to the Leahy Center, the waterfront is home to a Coast Guard base, pleasure boat slips, and the remnants of commercial water activities, all connected by a path lined with rather nice porch swings. The coffee scene in Burlington might be the best I've ever experienced. I've reached the point where the coffee I make at home is usually better than even the expensive pour-overs from well-regarded cafes. I struggle to spend the $5 to $7 US that pour-over in Burlington costs in other markets, but here it was worth every penny because it exposed new horizons. At Onyx Tonics, the owner trained under a 3-time world barista champion in Britain and roasts his own beans. You may be noticing a trend in Burlington. He spent half of my visit diving deep into the local coffee business with a patron seated at the bar. The other half he spent talking television with a screenwriter, obviously a regular. It was here that I learned that a flavor I have been avoiding, thinking it was the taste of the filter paper, can be developed into crisp and delicious pear. The only disappointment was Kestrel. Well reviewed and certainly the big game in town, where the barista unceremoniously dumped all the water into grounds too fine to drain properly. This resulted in a 10-minute wait for a bitter, over-extracted $6 coffee. At the end of the day, though, Burlington is about the atmosphere more than the individual entities within. Remove any players and something similar will spring up. The environment encourages creativity and innovation. I noticed this as early as the highway approaching town, where the drivers combine Montreal precision with a non-competitive, laid-back attitude. I even found the men more attractive, since the sharp edges so many seem fond of honing these days had been lovingly and indulgently filed smooth. Nobody had anything to prove. They were just being themselves and letting things happen. I was shaken out of the nearly dreamlike state that all the locals seemed to drift around in when I stopped at the Brownlow LCBO on the way home. As soon as I'd entered the store, a muscled and tattooed security guard accosted me with a curt, "May I help you, ma'am?" and proceeded to follow me through the store, despite my polite declination. Admittedly, I'd more or less rolled out of bed and into the driver's seat that morning, as is one of the perks of van life. And I know that Brownlow is dealing with a homelessness and opioid crisis it is singularly unequipped to deal with. Truth be told, I can't know what was going through that security guard's mind, nor know how many of our fair city's homeless can afford Lululemon athleisure wear. In any case, the message felt clear. Welcome home.